James Turner for the untouchable true school sports. Let's go, baby. Bow!
Be careful what you wish for because it can become a reality.
Yeah. The Untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. All right, so this is my early fight breakdown for Brian Nomen Jr. versus Devin Haney. You know, this is a fight that has really captured the public's attention, the public's imagination, and every day I go on Twitter, I see people arguing about this fight. You know, whether the Team Haney or Team Nomen, I just see people going crazy on Twitter about this every single day. And mind you, the fight's not until November. The fight's not until damn near Thanksgiving, and we're not even in August yet. It's July 31st as I'm shooting this video. So it's a really interesting fight, and there's so many things to discuss when you talk about this fight. So I'll give you guys my prediction at the end, but I'm gonna break this fight from down from a couple standpoints, and we'll start with the psychological standpoint for both fighters heading into the fight. Where are they both at psychologically? Now, we'll start with Devin Haney because I think he's the more interesting person psychologically to dissect in this fight. Devin Haney this is going to be a second fight since the debacle that was the Ryan Garcia fight, where he got absolutely plastered all over the canvas. He got up and he fought, but then, you know, there was all that came with that. Ryan taking steroids, Ryan testing positive, the lawsuit, the backlash of the lawsuit, you know, and that could do a lot to a person. All that he had to go through with that fight. Now, he's had one fight since then against Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez is very compromised and shot, and that's been the case for a couple years now. He's immensely checked out of boxing for at least 2 to 3 years. He's just going through the motions, and that's what it looked like in the fight from Jose Ramirez. So I don't really put too much stock in the Jose Ramirez fight, although Devin did box very, very well. It was against an opponent who is compromised, and it was against an opponent who has seen better days, and it was against an opponent who's really didn't have anything in the speed department or hand speed department. You know, Devin had an advantage everywhere, so that's why the fight played out how it did. I went back. Well, no, I'll get to that later on. What I'll say is this: Devin Haney, I think, does have a little PTSD, and he should have a little PTSD from the Ryan Garcia fight because he hasn't really had that many rounds since the Ryan Garcia fight. And he's fighting a guy in Brian Nomen Jr. who is so dangerous. He can make that PTSD flare up real quickly if he's not careful. That's one side of the equation. On the other side of the equation with Devin, you got to admire him, right? You got to respect him stepping up to the plate to go right to Brian Nomen Jr. Because look, we see Jaron Ennis. He didn't fight Brian Nomen Jr. And then he could have fought Devin Haney. He didn't fight Devin Haney, right? He put in stipulations and contracts to not fight Devin Haney at 47. Then he won't even go to 50. He's not even going to 54 to fight one of the top guys. He's trying to fight Josh Kelly and these kind of guys. So you got to admire a fighter who steps up to the plate and looks for the best and biggest fights, and that's what Devin Haney's done in this case with Brian Nomen Jr. Only thing I will say is that, you know, this whole thing with VADA and them trying to weaponize the drug testing, it makes me believe that they may not be as confident as they're letting off. But we'll see. The ring is the ultimate truth teller, and Devin Haney will get his chance to tell the truth in the ring. No drug testing will help. It's not about drug tests. It's not about none of that stuff. It's all about just who the better fighter is come fight night, and we shall see. Now, for Brian Nomen Jr., he's going to be coming into this fight super confident. I mean, like, super confident, because this is a guy that didn't really have any big-time TV fights till 2023 when he fought Quentin Randall. Didn't look good against Quentin Randall. Got dropped by Janelson Figueroa, and a lot of people in boxing were writing him off. Even me at a point was writing him off. You know, Top Rank was this close. They were about to give him that pink slip and show him the door. So they chucked him to the wolves with Giovanni Santillan. His back was against the wall, and they say pressure bursts pipes, and pressure can make a diamond. Pressure made a big diamond in that fight as Brian Nomen Jr. delivered one of the most vicious performances in recent memory against Santillan, knocking him out to become the WBO champion. And since then, he's been on a warpath. He knocked out Derek Cuevas with a jab, and then he went to Japan and he knocked out Jintazaki with a one-punch left hook to the head. Damn near killed the guy in what I think is going to be the 2025 knockout of the year. So right now, Brian Nomen's at a stage where, like, he knows he belongs, and now he's in the big leagues. Now we're going to see if he's going to ascend and become that next star for the Stars and Stripes in boxing in America. So I think going into the fight, the guy that's more confident is Brian Nomen Jr. I think it's Devin that's got more mental hurdles to overcome. All right, so I want to get into why I think Brian Nomen can beat Devin Haney. All right, so first and foremost, Devin Haney has never been in there with a punch like Brian Nomen Jr. in his entire boxing career. Go look at the resume. Who has Devin Haney fought at all in his entire career who's punching like Brian Nomen Jr.? You could say Ryan Garcia, right? But a lot of Devin Haney fans don't like to talk about the Ryan Garcia fight because they say he was on steroids. So if we disregard Ryan Garcia because he was on steroids, who has Devin Haney fought who's punching like Brian Nomen Jr.? I don't see it. Lomachenko, no. Jose Ramirez, no. George Kambosos, definitely no. Jorge Linares, no. Gamboa, I mean, he's a smaller guy, or he fought in lighter weight categories, and a lot of guys that he fought in lighter weight categories were not, these massive punchers. So Brian Nomen has a clear punching power advantage in this fight. Another reason why I feel like Brian Nomen wins, and what I've learned about him going back and watching film, is he's very detail oriented, and I know this because I've talked to Brian Nomen Sr. I talked to him a couple of times when I was out in Japan, and when I went to go see them at Ohashi Boxing Gym. But they're very detail oriented. But when you go back and you watch the film, like if you watch the Quentin Randall fight, the Cuevas fight, like if you just watch the development, if you start at Quentin Randall and you just go all the way to Sasaki, if you pay attention to what you're watching, you'll see a guy that's a different fighter. And I'm not talking about different in terms of results. I'm talking about different in terms of process and in terms of what he's developed into. Because when you watch him fight Quentin Randall, Brian Nomen Jr. was very sloppy. He was rushing in. He wasn't really setting nothing up. So I think that fight right there, the Quentin Randall fight, which I've heard a lot of Devin Haney fans use to say as a reason as to why they feel Devin Haney will win. The Quentin Randall fight, I think, was the fight where Brian Nomen Jr. really learned the value of... The Randall fight is where he learned the value of a jab, and I think it's been reflected in these last three performances. If you watch him against Santillan, the jab is what got him in range. The jab is what kept him at a good range to land those big knockout shots. He knocked out Derek Cuevas with the jab. He threw... he hurt him with the left hook. He ran him into a left hook about 10 seconds before that. Then he walked him down. Then he threw the inverted 1-2. He threw the 2-1. He threw the straight right hand, and then he threw the jab. The jab sent him to the canvas, and Derek Cuevas quit. He knocked him out with a jab. And then with Sasaki, the jab is why Sasaki, who was a gunslinger, wasn't able to land any of those big clubbing left hooks that he lands on a lot of people. And, his jab was very key for him in the Sasaki fight. So that's what I'm saying. When Devin Haney fans look at Janelson Figueroa and they look at Giovanni or Quentin Randall, I think those are... I don't... Devin is not fighting that guy. He's developed a lot since in that short period of time. And to go back to the Quentin Randall fight, Quentin Randall has a style. So first of all, Quentin Randall is 2 inches taller than Devin Haney. He's 5'11". Devin Haney's pushing about 5'9". So he's a taller fighter than Devin. I think he might be longer. I don't know about the reach, but he's taller than him, and his arms are pretty damn long. But the difference between Quentin Randall and Devin is Quentin Randall is actually less aggressive than Devin Haney. He opens up less than Devin Haney. So when you have a guy that tall who does not open up and knows how to box, knows his punching range, he's going to make you look bad. I've never seen anybody have a good fight against Quentin Randall. I've never seen nobody look good against Quentin Randall, win or lose. Brian Nomen Jr. didn't look good against Quentin Randall. And even Rohan Polanco, who's another top-ranked welterweight, he didn't look good against Quentin Randall. So Quentin Randall, you can't hold against him because nobody ever looks good against Quentin Randall. And Devin Haney don't fight like Quentin Randall. Devin Haney actually opens up a lot more than Quentin Randall. And then they keep comparing Brian Nomen to Prograis. Brian Nomen is not Prograis. Like Prograis is not. It doesn't punch as hard as Brian Nomen Jr. He's not as physically strong or as big as Brian Nomen Jr. So, I think if you're doing that, and God forbid, I hope the Haneys aren't looking at them fights thinking that that's the Brian Nomen they're going to fight, because if it is, they're going to be in some trouble. But what I will say is this. I think the key for Brian Nomen Jr. in this fight, and for Devin Haney, where I think the fight will be won or lost, is in the clinch. Devin Haney is going to, I think, clinch a lot in this fight. He's going to try to use the clinch to disrupt Norman's rhythm. So I think physical strength, it will be paramount. He'll have to, be able to handle those clinches, which I think he can. I think he's the more physically stronger guy. And I think if he can show that, clinching is a bad idea for Devin, it's going to plant a seed of doubt in Devin's head. And I think that's actually the key. More just as much as the jab or any punch will land, I think how Brian Nomen manages the clinches is what will ultimately open up his path to victory in this fight. I think in this fight you're going to see Devin Haney a lot because Brian Nomen just knocked out Sasaki with the left hook that everybody's going to remember forever with the leaving left hook. So they're going to be game planning in camp to block that left hook, right? So when Devin Haney goes to hold the phone and block the left hook, what's open? Like what do you guys see open? If we're fighting, right? If I'm an orthodox fighter, right? And if I'm holding the phone, right here, right, and my hand is here, what do you see open? Open down the middle. So if I'm open down the middle, what punch do you think Brian Nomen? What punch do you think is the key punch of Brian Nomen Jr. in this fight? It's gonna be either the straight right hand or he can loop it around the guard. But either way, I'll say this: he knocked out Quarles with a jab. He knocked out Santillan with the right uppercut. He knocked out Jin Sasaki with a left hook. I think the punch that, if Brian Nomen is to stop Devin Haney, I think the punch that'll do it will be some version of a right hand. Either it be the straight right hand, the straight right cross, or maybe like an overhand or a looping shot around the guard. Something like that. I think that's what does it. But yeah, Brian Nomen Jr. will win this fight because Brian Nomen Jr. is just not a puncher. He's a well-rounded fighter. He can box. He can punch. He's more athletic than people realize. And if Devin Haney gets in there and finds all that out, and if he finds out that Brian Nomen Jr. actually can move with him a little bit or enough to kind of make him fight, then it's going to be upon Devin to make the adjustment. And I think that's where the fight will swing in Brian Nomen's favor. Now, the reason why I feel like Haney could win this fight, there's a lot of them. First and foremost, big fight experience is definitely on the side for this fight. That can be leveraged into confidence going into the fight. Nomen has been winning some really good fights, but he's never been on a fight quite at this level. So that is in Devin Haney's favor. Another thing that Devin Haney has going in his favor is the fact that Devin Haney, when it comes to throwing just punches, he throws straight punches very, very well. And Brian Nomen can, he's hittable. I thought even in the Sasaki fight, Jin had some success jabbing to the stomach before he got knocked out, pulling straight out. I thought Jin had some success exchanging here and there, but ultimately, Jin is not defensively responsible. Now, Devin Haney is a little more defensively responsible. He's much more defensively responsible than Jin, and he's a higher level fighter than Jin. And one thing about Devin is very sharp. So if Brian Nomen Jr. has any lapses, if he gets square, Devin Haney will throw straight punches that will land and that will score. I went back and I watched a couple fights of Devin's. Now I went back. I watched I watched highlights of the Jose Ramirez fight, and I watched highlights from Devin Haney's fight against Jorge Linares because I think that's how he's gonna fight Brian Nomen Jr. Now, when he fought Jorge Linares, that was, to me, in my opinion, that might be the best version of Devin Haney. Very sharp, very fast, fighting in the pocket, fighting on the outside, fighting mid-range, sitting down on shots. I think not only is that will he fight, but I think that's how he's going to have to fight because of who is in front of him. He's not going to be afforded the chance to fight the way he did against Ramirez against Nomen, because one thing about Ramirez is Ramirez doesn't move as fast as Nomen. He don't punch as fast as Nomen, and he don't hit as hard as Nomen, and his punch selection isn't as wide as Nomen. So Devin Haney in that fight was able to see most of what was coming at him, which is why he was able to fight like that. In this fight, I think he's going to have to fight in the pocket because Brian Nomen is going to make him fight in the pocket. And going back and watching the Linares fight, there was a lot of great things he did in that fight. There'd be some times where, there was one sequence, I think it was in the 7th round, where Devin Haney slipped to his left, and then he blocked his shot. He blocked his shot with the left glove while he slipped to his left, and then he rolled back, and then he shot like a shovel uppercut and countered Jose Ramirez, and that was pretty like high level stuff there. He sat down with the left hook to the body and then threw a left hook to the head a couple times in the pocket. And obviously the jab was very key for Devin Haney. So I think you're going to see something like that in this fight. He's going to resemble more of the Linares type performance. And to me, that's the best Devin Haney that's ever existed. That was the best version of him that there ever was. Better than any fight, better than any of the Kambosos fights or Prograis. The Linares version of Haney was the most sharpest, best version of Devin Haney by miles, by eons, So with that being said, even in that performance, one thing that was alarming going back and watching that was that for all the great things Devin Haney was doing in the fight, first of all, he never really put Linares on his ass. He never knocked him down. The second thing is he was getting clipped. Devin Haney has this reputation for being this great defensive fighter. I don't think he's a great defensive fighter. I think he's a good defensive fighter. I think he's a good mover. I think he's a good mover, but I don't think he's a great defensive fighter in the pocket. That was shown against Ryan, and it was even shown in the Linares fight because he got clipped with that one shot where he was wobbling going back to the corner, and Linares like walked him back to the corner after the round was done. But even before that, the round before that, he got Linares landed, I think it was a left hook in between that really buzzed Devin Haney. So even at his sharpest, even at his best, there were lapses. He did get caught. He can get caught, but he did show that he has a good chin, and because he didn't get dropped and he wasn't getting close to getting knocked out. So he showed he had a chin, and that he's willing to fight. So I think people are doing a disservice looking at the Ramirez fight, thinking that's how Devin's gonna fight. I don't think Devin's going to fight that way because I don't think Devin Haney can fight that way in this fight because the guy in front of him is going to make him fight enough to have to sit in the pocket and answer some questions, So Devin Haney, if he resembles that performance, I think it's going to be paramount for him to, make sure he doesn't get clipped with the right hand because I think that's the punch Nomen's going to look for. I think that's a punch that, Nomen should look for because then Devin's going to be holding the phone. Devin Haney's going to have to be a really intelligent counterpuncher. He's going to have to maybe play a bit of a spoiler, clinch him, spin him, don't let him set his feet, and just really try to resemble that performance as much as possible. If he can resemble that performance and not get hurt, that's his best path to victory for me. So I'll say it like this. My final prediction for this fight is going to be this, man. Look, wouldn't shock me if Devin Haney won this fight because he's got the ability, the know-how, and the IQ to do it. He didn't get to this level by accident. But listen, he's standing in the way of a freight train. And that freight train is known as Brian Nomen Jr. And I think Brian Nomen Jr., it all depends on how Devin Haney comes out. Now, if Devin Haney comes out fighting a very risk-averse type of a fight, being very smart, I think this fight will at least go 8 rounds. But if he come out and he fight like he did against Linares and sit in that pocket early, he's going out quick. I'm telling you, he's going out quick. I think Brian Nomen Jr. Is going to get Devin Haney out of there. I'm going to make the same prediction I made for the Jin fight because I said that Brian would stop Jin Sasaki in 7 rounds. He stopped him in 5. I'm going to say he gets Devin Haney out of there in 7 rounds. I think Devin Haney has a lot of things he hasn't quite answered yet in terms of psychologically. I don't think he's got enough rounds in the bank to be ready for this kind of fight. And I think Devin Haney and his team are underestimating the boxing ability of Brian Nomen Jr. I think they're downplaying his level of opposition. They're saying, well, we don't know who Jin Sasaki is. Jin Sasaki sucks. We don't know who Santillan is. We don't know who Derek Cuevas is. So therefore, how could Brian Nomen Jr. beat me when I fought Lomachenko, when I fought Prograis, and I fought these guys? So I think in doing that, they're already underestimating his boxing ability, and they're going to find out that Brian Nomen Jr. can box. Brian Nomen Jr. we all know he can punch, but they're going to find out he can box, he can punch, and he's very detail-oriented, and he's a very smart fighter. Again, I reiterate, I say it again. Look at how he was approaching Quinton Randall and then how he approached Janos Figueroa. When he fought Boca Chica, he overextended on the right hand and got clipped. Since them fights, he has not made those technical mistakes. They've corrected all that. They've worked behind the jab. Brian Nomen Jr. seems since that fight since the first 2 fights on Top Rank with Randall and Janos Figueroa, from Santillan to Cuevas to Sasaki, them 3 fights, the one common theme that you see in all those fights, if you go back and you watch, is Brian Nomen Jr. trusting his jab because he had to learn the value of a jab from the Randall fight and from the Janos Figueroa fight, and he hasn't forgot the value of the jab since. And because he's understood the value of the jab, that jab has been the key that's picked the lock to unlock one of the most vicious fighters in boxing, which is Brian Nomen Jr. So I think, look, Devin Haney deserves a lot of credit for taking this fight because John Ennis wouldn't even do it. And he's going straight to the smoke. So win, lose, or draw, just as long as Devin Haney gets in the ring and doesn't pull out the fight, he will get all the respect in the world from me. But I just think ultimately the timing of this fight couldn't be worse for him. Brian Nomen Jr. Knows who he is in that boxing ring. He's fighting within himself, and he understands that, like, naturally, Brian Nomen Jr. is a heavy-handed puncher. So therefore, Brian Nomen Jr. isn't loading up on shots like he was when he fought Randall Boca Chica. He knows he's naturally heavy-handed, so he's just letting the knockouts come. He's boxing the fights, and the knockouts happen in the by themselves because he's just naturally heavy-handed. So I think Devin Haney will fight a brave fight. I don't think Devin Haney's gonna be on his bike like people think. I think Devin Haney's gonna come to fight. I think Devin Haney's gonna go in the pocket and try to resemble this Linares performance against Brian Nomen Jr. And this fight, whether Brian Nomen or Devin Haney wins, will ultimately be determined on who wins the battle of manipulating the clinches. Devin Haney, I think, is gonna shoot a lot of single shots. Like he'll throw a lot of straight right hand clinch, left hook clinch, 1-2 clinch, 1-2 spin off clinch. Like you're gonna see a lot of that from Devin Haney. When those clinches come, Brian Nomen Jr. has to show that he is the grown man, and little boy Devin Haney so much to the point where Devin Haney doesn't want to clinch no more and has to box, and then that will be when Christmas comes early and Brian Nomen Jr. lights him the hell up. So Brian Nomen Jr., 7 rounds. It'll be a fun fight, but I think Brian Nomen Jr. will solidify himself further as the best welterweight in the world, and Devin Haney will get a lot of respect in defeat. In fact, I'll tell you this. I think Devin Haney is about to get more respect in this defeat than he ever got in any of his wins. Mark my words. So, yeah, I know a lot of people disagree, but I know a lot of people will agree. So, hey, that's the fun part of all this. There'll be a lot more Brian Nomen Jr., Devin Haney content as we build up to the fight. But, yeah, leave your comments down below. Make sure you guys take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you could love me or you could hate me. But I'm just a kid from Daniel. So until next time, take care, guys. Thank you for watching another video on The Untouchable True School Sports Empire. For more great boxing content just like this, make sure you guys stay tuned and subscribe. You won't be disappointed.